Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into some pretty powerful stuff from the Quran.
Yeah, we're looking at Juz's 20,
Jesus 20, right?
specifically Surah Al-Qasas and Surah Al-Ankabut.
Okay, so for anyone who maybe hasn't explored this part of the Quran,
Mm.
um, what kinds of themes are we going to find in these surahs?
Well, we're talking about divine justice.
Okay.
We're talking about tough lessons.
Well,
And we're going to get into some really fascinating figures
Definitely.
like Moses,
of course.
but also a guy named Korun,
Quran, okay. I'm intrigued.
who, well, let's just say he learned a hard lesson about wealth.
Oh, so we're getting into some of those like timeless human struggles.
Exactly. It's incredible how these stories, though ancient, hold up a mirror to human nature in any era.
Yeah, they really do. It's like these themes of good and evil, the consequences of our choices, that pull between right and wrong that I think we all feel.
Yeah, it's all there. It's all there, yeah. Okay, so let's start with Moses. I mean, everybody knows the big picture, right? Parting the Red Sea, leading his people to freedom.
Mm-hmm.
But in Surah Al-Qasas, we get this deeper look at his journey. Like, did you know before he became the Moses, he actually committed an accidental killing?
Oh, yeah.
It's this event that kind of sends him fleeing Egypt, right?
Right.
And it really sets the stage for this, like, incredible encounter with God.
Huge turning point in his life.
Totally. So we see Moses, chosen by God, but still grappling with, a very human mistake.
Yeah, and this one act sends him on this whole path of exile, reflection, and ultimately leads him to the burning bush.
The burning bush. Which, by the way, talk about divine timing. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But I want to get into that encounter for a sec. It always gives me chills. What's the significance behind the signs that God gives Moses to present to the Pharaoh?
Right. It's not every day a bush bursts into flames and chats you up.
Right, not your average Tuesday.
So those signs, think the staff turning into a snake,
Okay, yeah.
the Nile turning to blood.
It's a lot.
These weren't just, parlor tricks.
Yeah.
They were divine messages meant to awaken Pharaoh's heart, to make him realize the power he was up against wasn't of this world.
And yet, Pharaoh still chose to resist, even after witnessing those miracles firsthand.
I know you would think seeing is believing,
Right.
but that's the thing about arrogance.
What's that?
It's like this impenetrable shield.
Mm-hmm.
The Pharaoh, he was drunk on his own power. So he chose to interpret those signs as magic, further solidifying his disbelief.
Wow. So it's less about the miracles themselves and more about what they represent.
Exactly.
Like this test of faith.
Right.
And a chance for the Pharaoh to realize, okay, maybe there's something bigger than me at play here.
It speaks to this universal human struggle, this pull between faith and ego.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it makes you wonder, how often do we let our own egos or our need to be right or our need to be in control, how often does that blind us to a bigger picture? Whoa. Okay, that hit home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been guilty of that myself. I feel like it's like that saying, ego is the enemy. But it's interesting you mentioned this idea of a bigger picture because it makes me think about another story in Juz's 20.
Okay.
The tale of Karun.
Right.
Talk about a stark contrast to Moses' humility.
Oh, yeah.
This guy was rolling in riches, palaces, like the whole 9 yards. And yet it wasn't enough.
It's wild, right? You think someone swimming in that much wealth would be grateful,
Why?
generous.
Yeah.
But for Karun, it had the opposite effect.
Really?
Yeah, his immense fortune fueled this insatiable greed, blinding him to the needs of others,
Wow.
and more importantly, his duty to God.
And the Quran doesn't shy away from the consequences of his actions, right?
No.
Talk about a dramatic exit. Swallowed whole by the earth along with all his treasures.
It's almost like a parable. The earth literally opening up and swallowing his greed whole.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder that material wealth, it's fleeting. Our good deeds, our compassion, our faith, those are the things that truly matter.
And that message feels so relevant for us today,
Absolutely.
especially in our kind of like materialistic, gotta have it all culture.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in that pursuit of more.
Mm-hmm.
But then Karun's story makes you pause and think, what's it all for?
Right. It's a question we all need to ask ourselves. Are we using our resources, our time, our energy to chase these fleeting possessions? Or are we investing in something much more lasting, something that transcends this earthly life?
Yeah, it's about building that legacy, right?
Yeah.
Of good deeds, of kindness, of leaving the world a better place than we found it. And that kind of brings us to, I think, another really critical theme in Juz's 20,
Okay.
which is this idea of the rise and fall of entire societies.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just individuals facing divine justice.
Yeah, you're hitting on something really crucial here.
Okay.
Jesus 20 dives into this cyclical pattern we see throughout history. Civilizations rising to these great heights, only to crumble under the weight of their own corruption.
So we're talking about, like, the people of Ayad.
The people of Ad, Thamud,
Thamud, right.
even the people of Lot.
Okay, yeah.
Their stories serve as these powerful warnings about what happens when societies lose their moral compass.
Okay, but what does that even look like?
What's that?
Like a society losing its moral compass. And how does that connect to this idea of divine justice?
Good question. Take the people of Ad, for example.
Okay.
They possessed incredible strength.
Okay.
They built these magnificent cities,
Yeah.
but they let their success go to their heads.
No.
Pride morphed into arrogance, wealth into greed, and soon they were consumed by their own desires, forgetting their responsibility to their communities and to God.
So it's almost like their own success became their downfall.
Yeah.
They became so focused on building up these worldly empires that they neglect the foundations of a just and compassionate society. It makes you wonder, are we seeing similar patterns play out in our own time?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something we'll delve into a little later. But first, let's explore the other side of this coin. The importance of faith and perseverance, especially in the face of adversity. This brings us to Surah Al-Ankabut and a whole other dimension of this conversation.
Okay, so we're talking faith, we're talking perseverance, and that feels especially relevant for us today, I think.
Yeah.
You know, life throws those curveballs.
Mm-hmm.
Things get tough.
It happened.
And it's easy to just start questioning everything.
Yeah.
So what's the message here in Surah Ankabut? How do we stay strong in our convictions when, everything feels shaky?
It's the age-old question.
Right.
And Surah Al-Ankabut cuts right to the chase. It tells us that true faith, it isn't just something you say,
Okay.
it's something you live,
Oh, wow.
especially when it's hard.
So it's about walking the walk.
Exactly.
Not just talking the talk. Right.
Well-
But how does that look like in a practical sense? What are we really talking about here?
It's about making those ethical choices even when no one's watching. It's about standing up for what's right, even if it means going against the crowd. It's about holding on to hope, even in the darkest of times.
That reminds me of something you touched upon earlier,
That's
this
right.
idea of speaking truth to power, even when it's risky.
Mm-hmm.
Are there examples of this in the stories that we've been discussing today?
Absolutely. Look at Moses confronting Pharaoh.
Oh, yeah?
Talk about a daunting task.
It's real.
But he knew in his heart that what he was doing was right, and he trusted in something bigger than himself. That's true courage.
Wow.
Using your voice even when it feels like the whole world is against you.
That makes you think about even those everyday situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where maybe we're called to show that kind of courage.
Yeah.
Maybe in smaller ways. Like speaking up against injustice we see in our own communities or challenging prejudice in our workplaces. I mean, it might not feel as grand as parting the Red Sea,
Right.
but those little acts of courage, I have to imagine they matter.
Exactly. Those small acts, those ripples of courage and integrity, they have a way of creating waves of change over time. It's about recognizing that we all have a part to play in building a better future.
So it's not about waiting for that, like, one big heroic moment.
Right.
It's about showing up with integrity in our everyday lives,
Yeah.
making those tough choices and trusting that even those small acts of good, they can have that ripple effect.
Precisely. And that brings us back to the heart of these Quranic stories. They're not just ancient history.
Right.
They're guideposts for navigating the complexities of the human experience,
Yeah.
reminding us that the choices we make, big or small, they shape not only our own lives, but the world around us.
Wow. I mean, when you put it like that, it really makes you reflect on your own life, doesn't it?
It does.
Like, what choices am I making? Am I living my values? Am I contributing to a more just and compassionate world? These are big questions.
Those are the questions. And the beauty is there's no one right answer. It's a lifelong journey of reflection, action, and just striving to be better each day.
It really is. Well, on that note, I think we've done some serious deep diving today. For anyone listening, we hope these stories and these themes, they stay with you. Keep reflecting, keep questioning, and keep striving to make the world a little brighter. Until next time, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.